Hey everybody, and welcome back to Lindsey's Little Library. So we're here today to do another installment in a little series that I started a few weeks ago of 3 favorites by my 3 favorites. So as we approach the spooky season, because we are finally officially in fall, we're right around the corner from October, and this is the time of year I love reading all about thrillers and mysteries and suspenseful books. So these 3 authors are 3 authors from my list of favorite mystery, thrillery, suspenseful type books. I was going to break them down a little bit, but they just kind of overlapped. So this is the first of, let me see, at least one, probably 2 videos with this specific genre in mind that I'm going to put out over the next few weeks. So they're not in any particular order. I just picked the authors that I love, and I'm going to tell you my 3 favorite books by them. So first one I have, because it's alphabetical order, is Taylor Adams. Taylor Adams has the ability to write a book that you literally cannot put down. There is suspense from the very first sentence to the end of the book, and there's 3 books by him that I've truly enjoyed the most. The first one I read by him was No Exit, and so that's always going to have a little special spot on my shelf, but not physically on my shelf because I don't know who I even borrowed the book to, and it's gone. But a special spot in my virtual shelf of one of my favorite suspenseful books ever. So this follows our main character who is on her way back to see her family. It is during a snowstorm. There's been a family emergency, and she just really needs to get back to her mom. So she's trying to just push through it in her little used, not so great car, going through the mountains, I want to say in like Utah or something like that. Like, we're talking serious mountains. And the storm gets to be too much. Her windshield wipers can't keep up. She can't see where she's going. She decides to pull over into like a wayside for the night and seek shelter, and then start again in the morning. So she pulls into there, and she realizes she's not by herself. There's a few other people also doing the same thing that she is. So there's like a couple of other guys. There's just a handful of people there. So she goes into the wayside, into like the main building, and talks to them for a little bit, and then decides she wants to try to call her mom and let her know that like she's trying to get there, but she can't because there's this emergency going on, right? So the person tells them, one of the people there say, hey, if you go outside and you go up by this like flagpole, you get a better cell signal. So she decides to do that. So she goes back into the storm, tries to get this cell signal. It isn't working. And as she's walking back, she kind of takes a different way through the cars and notices in one of the vehicles is there's a cage in the back of the vehicle, because she happens to be walking by this van. She looks in the window. I do the same when I walk by. Sees this cage, and inside the cage is a girl, alive, locked in a cage, in a van, during a storm, when it's cold. So now she has this dilemma. She knows this information. She knows that one of the people inside is responsible for this vehicle. She doesn't know who, and they're stuck together. What does she do? It's wild. So there's that one. The next one that kind of, I guess, hit me hard was The Last Word. This is the newest book by Taylor Adams. This basically is a woman decides to go house sit in a very remote location on an island. It is off season, so there isn't a lot of people there. And she had just recently reviewed a book online and gave it a 1 star and was pretty harsh about her review. And the author starts reaching out to her and starts threatening her, like, you need to take it down, you need to fix it, you need to not say it's 1 star. And maybe goes a little too far into stalking said person in this isolated, all alone house on an island where nobody else is. It is also crazy. And then we have Eyeshot. This was one, I want to say it was Kindle Unlimited. Like, I read it on my Kindle. This follows a couple who is, I want to say they're moving cross country, and they're kind of in their final leg of driving across country and looking forward to the kind of their new life and new things that are coming up. And they're going through a spot, I want to say again it was Utah, and they see that there's a road closure sign and like a detour that takes them, not so much a road, but more like a very well trail around. I know I'm pointing as if you know where I'm going. So, but they're like, hey, I mean, the detour sign's up. It says that's what it says to do. There's construction going on. We got to do what it says to do. Little do they know, they're falling into a trap. They're basically driving into this basin. And when they drive into the basin, a sharpshooter basically disables their car and treats it as if it's this hunt, because they can't move. They can't get out of this basin without being seen by the sharpshooter. And now what do? So 3 fantastic, very suspenseful, thrillery books by Taylor Adams that you cannot put down. The next author I want to talk about is Heather Gudenkauf, and I don't think she's talked about enough, and she's definitely one where I will read any and all books by her. I think I've read almost all of her books. I think I'm missing 1 or 2. So she's definitely one I could read to zero pretty quickly. First one I want to talk about, and my favorite that I want to talk about, is Little Mercies. This one, I mean, be prepared. This one's going to hit hard, especially if you're a mom. So we have a social worker, Ellen. She sees the worst side of humanity. She sees all of the horrible things that can happen to kids. She's a children's advocate, and this job is just overpowering her, overtaking her life. She's constantly being called away from her own family to go and help other kids, and she's happy to do that, happy to be the one person that they can count on. Then one blistering summer day, a simple moment of distraction has some of the worst repercussions for Ellen that she could ever imagine. Basically shattering her world. So we have that side of it. Then we have another viewpoint in Jenny. She is 10. Has been living with her very well-meaning but irresponsible father since her mother left, sleeping on friends' couches and moving in and out of cheap hotels. When she finds herself on her own, she's forced to survive with nothing but a few dollars and street smarts. Last thing she wants is a social worker, but when Ellen and Jenny's lives collide, little do they know just how much they need each other to help each other. I'm throwing this in mystery, thriller-ish, probably more mystery, but maybe not as much. But I'm putting it here because of Heather Gudenkauf's other 2 books make sense within this. But this is by far my favorite book by her. The next one I want to talk about is The Overnight Guest, and this is where we get into that mystery, thriller, suspenseful trope a little bit better. So this one is isolated thriller. This is a writer who is looking for an escape. She just needs to get away from everything and just sit down, hunker down, and finish her book. She's a true crime novelist, so she's writing a book based on something that has happened in the past. She finds this very isolated farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and she's like, this is perfect. This is where I need to be. I'm just gonna go there. I'm gonna finish my book. While she's there, huge snowstorm comes, right? This is really great to actually read during a snowstorm. Just saying. Huge snowstorm comes. She's stuck inside, working on this, and also kind of facing, you get the sense that there's some secrets from her past as well. And she lets the dog out, and the dog doesn't come back, so she goes out to kind of investigate, and she finds a small child just in the middle of a blizzard, just laying in her driveway. And now what? And so you get the idea of what's happened to the child, and then what's happening with our main character and how things collide, and it's so good. I think I read that in like a day. It was so good. And then the next one I want to talk about is Weight of Silence. This one follows 7-year-old Callie. She has selective mutism. She cannot talk to strangers. She ends up going missing. And her father's not great. So her father becomes a bit of a suspect. He is attempting to find her as well, but it's kind of like, we don't want him to find her. He's not a great person. Oh, he's not a great person. And then here's this 7-year-old out there who can't speak for herself, can't yell out, where did she go? Why did she leave? What happened? When did she go? All of those questions come to head in this book. Also, fantastic read. And then the last author I want to talk about is Jennifer Hillier. I feel like she is the queen of dark and messed up, basically. Favorite by far, and I think for a lot of people, is Jar of Hearts. I read this a long time ago. I don't even have my stamp in here, like a long time ago. I want to say right when it, like very close to when it first came out. It's probably due for a reread, honestly. But this is one that I will recommend time and time again. So we have 16-year-old Angela. She's one of the most popular girls in school, and she disappeared without a trace. No one ever suspected that her best friend, Georgina, who's now an executive and a rising star in a Seattle company, was involved in any way in her disappearance. And certainly not Kaiser, who was close to both of the girls back in high school. But 14 years later, Angela's remains are discovered near Georgina's home. Kaiser is now a detective with the Seattle PD. He starts learning the truth and unveiling some evidence that Angela was a victim of this Kelvin James, the same Kelvin James who murdered at least 3 other women. To the authorities, Kelvin's a serial killer, but Gio, or Georgina, he's something else entirely. Back in high school, Kelvin was Gio's first love. Turbulent and volatile, their relationship bordered on obsession from the moment they met right up until the night that Angela was killed. For 14 years, Georgina has known what happened to Angela and told no one. She's carried the secret of her death until she is arrested and sent to prison. So there's so much that happens in this very little book. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I feel like, I know when some people read this, they're like, they gave away so much. No, that's just the beginning. There's plenty of stuff that you don't know going into this. So fantastic, my favorite Jennifer Hillier. Next up, I would have to say Things We Do in the Dark would kind of be my next favorite Jennifer Hillier. This one is Paris. She's arrested in her bathroom, covered in blood, holding a razor, and her celebrity husband is dead in the bathtub behind her. It looks bad. She knows it looks bad, but she swears she is innocent and didn't do this. And as things kind of come uncovered, we start to learn also about her past and where that might interfere with the perception of whether she's innocent or not. There's a lot of secrets in this book, a lot of secrets, and it's fantastic. And I flew through this one as well. And the last book I want to talk about by Jennifer Hillier is The Butcher. This is probably like the 3rd book that she's read, a bit of her backlist, but this one is a standalone. There's 2 books, Creep and Freak, that are like companion novels. Also read Creep, that was awesome. But this one, we have Edward Shank. He hunted down and killed the most notorious serial killer in Seattle's history. Most of her books take place in Seattle, FYI. And now it's 30 years later, he's retired, he's living the life, he's 80, he's giving up his Victorian home to his grandson, who is an aspiring chef. While Matt is renovating it, he stumbles upon a bit of a discovery. He needs to decide whether he ignores the sinister secret that he found or go to the police, or take matters into his own hands. And his family's past is feeding disturbing changes in him as well. Is it the house? Is it what happened? Is it the secret? We go from there. Is there a tie-in to the serial killer? I don't know. It's so good. Read this one also fairly quickly. Another great thing about Jennifer Hillier is she has this way of making you want to continue to keep going and going and going with her chapters. They're not super short, but they're not super long, and they tend to end on a and here's a little nugget of information, end of chapter. And here's a little thing, and end of chapter, and you just can't stop. So that's my 3 favorite by Jennifer Hillier. So 3 favorites by 3 favorites that should easily help boost your TBR for the next month in this wonderful, creepy little season we have. If you've read any of these or you have any other suggestions, of course, leave them below because I like to share bookish chats with everybody else. Otherwise, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.